All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the ultimate workshop for automation for you small to medium business owners. We're going to enjoy today. There's going to be a lot of really good information. So, by all means, have yourselves some water, get yourself comfortable. We're just going to go over some really cool stuff that's going to help demystify all of this talk around automation, what it is, how to use it, what benefits there are in store for you. And we're going to go through a few different things that will help you begin to strategize about how you can start to implement this into your business. So we will go ahead and get started. So I will spend some more time introducing my company a little later on. For now, I want to just introduce me as your host. My name is Gerard Smith, and this picture down here is actually a picture of my beautiful city. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I am a full stack web developer with about 7 years of experience. I've been working with multiple corporations, contracting firms, and so forth. My primary background is in full stack web development, and I got my education at the Bloom Institute of Technology, formerly known as Lambda School. So big shout out to Austin Allred and everything that they're doing over there. So in regards to who this is for, you have your e-commerce businesses and you have your service-based businesses. So this goes for all of the different coaches and collective consultants out there. This goes for anyone who has a storefront that they're operating, those of that nature. So these will be helpful tips for you as to how to start to implement these things into your business, all of which will be very, very helpful. So I want to talk about what this is going to be about and what it's not going to be about. So it's not going to be about AI. AI is you could say, subcategory of automation. We don't want to talk about that today just because it's such a specialized subcategory that there are a lot of areas where, we can end up making things a lot more confusing to understand rather than easy to understand. And so it isn't exactly the best kind of introduction to the topic. We want this to be simplistic. We want it to be filled with actionable information that you can use on the same day. So anything that you can do to be able to take this information right back home and capitalize on it right away, that's what we're looking for. As far as legal advice, definitely we don't want any of this at any time to be misconstrued as any kind of legal advice, because that is definitely not what we are trying to give here. Once again, we're trying to give you information that you can take home and start to put together a strategy. All right, small connection issue there. Going to give that a second to reconnect, and then we will jump right back on in. All right, fantastic. So I want to talk about right now some different things to do with what this affects as far as small businesses. So based on some information released by I believe the Census Bureau does these surveys, and during these surveys they like to collect information that they can use in order to help people figure out what they need to do in order to produce good fruit in their business. And so we use some of the information from one of those table surveys to discover what are the average sizes of a SMB, and it turns out that most have between 1 to 8 to 19 employees. We knocked this down to 18 to factor in for what the actual business owner, where they're involved. So we just knock off 1 to account for mainly the employees on the inside, not necessarily the business owner as well, if the company is one that has that many employees. The majority are definitely solo operations, and so you have a lot of businesses out there that they're relying pretty heavily on just one person who is wearing all of the hats and doing all of the things. We appreciate you guys. Big shout out to you, because it's not easy. But let's talk about some numbers. So if we're talking about, pretty basic pay, those numbers start at around $15 per hour. So that's the reference point we're going to use here. And if we're talking about 18 people, the math is going to be that 15 hours times that $15, sorry, times 8 hours per day, per 18 people, right? And so you end up with a daily total of around $2,000 and some change. Now you take that into a 40-hour week across that same team, and you end up with about 46,000. Take that over the course of the year, and you're well over $500,000 at that point. Why are we talking about this? Well, we want to talk about We want to talk about stoppages. We want to get into why people are stopping and why they are not making the money that they need to, because they are running into all of these red lights. So when you have all of these stoppages, right, this pausing, this stop and go, this 1 minute you're doing something, the next minute you're kind of not, and things aren't going as smooth as they should because of things that really just get in the way of doing business, right? You're talking about running into overwhelm and poor organization due to just constant multitasking. You're talking about poor collaboration and communication. You're talking about manual tasks that are performed extremely slowly, and so that ends up with a higher margin of error and a lot of work that isn't valuable being done. You're talking about repetitive tasks that create redundancy and tend to waste time and money. And you're talking about staff, stakeholders, and clients that can lose trust in the company ultimately. The brand, the service, the product, whatever it is, worst case scenarios that happens because they're not seeing the results they want to see. And then internally, if we're talking a simple 3 tasks a day that just aren't fruitful, and they only take about 5 minutes each, right? Really low hanging fruit for automation programs to handle, stuff like filtering particular emails, doing spreadsheet data entry, updating certain systems such as your CRM or your sales tools, marketing tools, administrative tools based on what happens across departments. You start to see that you end up wasting quite a bit of money at the end of the month, right? At the end of the year, it's a pretty extravagant amount that gets wasted. So if you were instead to accelerate 3 mission critical but small steps, you would actually be winning that back, right? So your team hits their zen, they're organized, they have easy systems to use, communication is great, document sharing, collaboration, all good. Manual tasks get replaced by systems that execute quickly, very important, and with high levels of precision, and they're automated, so the time is actually redeemed. You now have people who are winning time back instead of wasting that time. And overall, that's going to put you in a position where your staff, your stakeholders, your clients, they're regaining trust in the brand, right? They're starting to see how awesome this is when they can win with ease. They don't have to go through these minutiae and things that aren't good for them to do because they're just not using their gifts. They're not operating in their best talents. They're operating in the way that is, at the end of the day, suboptimal. That's the problem that we're trying to fix here. All right. So now if we go and we look at who this is for and what it's about, a little more detail on that is we're talking about adding your tech and your people, your tech and your processes together in a structure that helps your business to actually succeed. Okay? We want you to be able to have highly efficient processes. We want your team to operate at their best. That's really all that it boils down to. So when we talk about this, we're talking about a trifecta of people, process, and technology. Harold Levitt wrote a really awesome piece of work on this back in the 60s. It actually had 4 parts. Over the years, it was streamlined into this trifecta of people, process, and technology. And really what Levitt was emphasizing was that success depends on balancing these things rather than focusing on one dimension. What we do at South Atlantic Tech is focus on the intersection of people in tech and process in tech. So you see these 2 nodes right here, okay? We want to be able to share more information about how to set up good processes, how to empower your team through good technology. And then once those processes are set up, how to use technology to maximize on those processes to make you as powerful as possible. So we had a bit of a talk about some numbers, but there's more than numbers to the situation. It's more than about getting money back, right? Ultimately, the goal is to move you from being an inconsistent, replaceable, or worst case scenario, completely dysfunctional business to being outstanding. When you are a dysfunctional business, you typically see rapid decline in how much money you're making, how much market share you have, your competitors are passing you by, you're just not really doing great in the market at all. Internally, you have a lot of firefighting. Everyone 24/7 is just on 10, right? Out of one. And they're just overworked, they're exhausted, you have high turnover, productivity is at an all-time low, things just are not going well. Then you get into how your brand looks. Your customers are complaining often, retention is not doing well, they're leaving, they're turning to competitors, they're just overall dissatisfied, and things don't seem to be moving the way that you would like them to. As a result of that, your status quo is completely unsustainable. You don't have the metrics or the insights to figure out where the problems are. Your processes are not documented. You don't have the ability to checkpoint anything, and you don't know where to even begin with fixing the plethora of issues. So fear really starts to settle in at this point. We start to wonder, are we going to be able to make it? Are we going to be sustainable? Are we going to have to close down? What's going to happen with my family? What's going to happen with the organization? And everyone on the team is thinking the same thing. This is what we absolutely cannot afford to fall into, this state of dysfunctionality. But there's good news. There is a way out, and we'll talk more about it. If you're an inconsistent business, you might have some market share. People might know your name. Competitors might know you. Business goes up and down always, but you might notice that yours is actually doing this wild kind of swinging. So it's not trending down constantly, but it is sort of maybe trending down and maybe not. You're just kind of all over the place. You don't really know, right? And this is the problem with the inconsistency as far as the market level is concerned. So competitors might know a little bit about you, but they're not exactly concerned with you. And people might buy from you. You might deliver things in a great way. Your product might be great. Your service might be great, but somehow it's just not impacting the way you want it to. So your staff internally, productivity can, just like the market share, vary wildly, right? And there might be a 20-80 dynamic going on, 80-20, depending on how you learned about the the metaphor or whatever have you, figure of speech, just meaning that there's 20% of the people doing 80% of the work. There's a clear imbalance going on, right? Roles and procedures, they're just not clear. Documentation isn't very clear if it exists at all. What little does is probably not making the biggest difference, but every little bit counts. I want to point that out. Loyalty and retention, it's definitely subpar. People might say things like, you're really great, but last thing anyone wants to hear on a date, right? But this is what happens in business all the time. There might be a solopreneur who's an absolute genius in marketing, or they might be a genius in art and design, and they might be a genius in even technology, or they might be a genius in whatever field that they're in, but working with them is really hard just because of the inconsistency. It's just really difficult to get a beat on them. You don't know when you're going to get that email back, phone call, text, whatever, and you might be willing to just go somewhere else. People will be willing to go somewhere else if they can just get something more consistent, even if they absolutely love the company's products and services that they're dealing with. Okay, so the expenses, right? Talking about status quo now. You have high expenses, you have invisible problems, once again, things that might be going on, but you can't quite track them. You have operational bottlenecks everywhere. So growth is unsustainable, and customer service or service delivery is unreliable. Okay. This is in contrast to a dysfunctional status quo that's completely unsustainable. Growth may be unstable, but it's more possible, and status quo may not be becoming more sustainable if you don't act at some point, but it's definitely not at the point where everyone is worried about the business going bankrupt. Okay, your replaceable businesses are completely undifferentiated. That's their issue in the market. If we look at a bell curve, right, you'll see that the lower extreme to the far left and the upper extreme to the far right, you'll notice the graph sort of has a shorter height than it does in the middle. This is meant to represent any situation where you have an average, right, and you have clusters around that average. So this might be grades in schools, for example. Students might have C's on average, and as you go down to the really bad scores, the F's, you start to get less and less students who are just completely failing. But if you go to the right and those students who all have just A pluses all the way through and through, it also becomes less students, right? So in the center is where you have most people. This is sort of just the average. And if you fall in this category, that's what you are, average at best, right? And so you want to become differentiated. You have a competition point. You might be competing primarily on price. Many do, right? People go to you because, hey, it's a little cheaper than the other place, right? You're there, okay? They know you're there. The market knows you're there. You're just kind of there. Bare minimum's getting done internally. People aren't super motivated. They're not inspired very much. Things might be a little clearer. Talents aren't being leveraged and geniuses begin to leave. It's just overall cutting through, getting the bare minimum done. Again, lack of differentiation, lack of diversity, excitement, however you call it. Things just aren't really geared up the way that they need to be to keep things intense enough for real success to start happening. But some success is happening. Customers can feel like numbers. They don't feel valued, right? You do a good deal, you turn it around, you deliver the service, but they're comfortable with you, but they're not necessarily loyal. They maybe don't find a lot of overlap between you, your brand, and they might be taken by another competitor who perhaps can deliver the service just as well, but just has more differentiation, right? And this gets into automation as well, because when we start to talk about things like email campaigns and things of that nature, it starts to become very clear why undifferentiated businesses can lose their customers very easily to businesses that have automated some things, including how they nurture their clients. It's a big deal. So the overall status quo becomes stable but unremarkable, right? Systems lack human-centric design and can be hard to train on. So maybe you have some things in place, some SOPs, some documentation, but it's not exactly hitting with the team. Outside, in the outside world, right, you have people who are attracted to your brand, but they're not exactly loyal. Things are just making sense. They're just okay. Okay, it's just sort of, but they're not really moving the way that you need them to. So no matter where you're starting out, rather inconsistent, rather replaceable, or, you know, completely dysfunctional, we hope you're not there. But if you are, it's just the reality of things. It's okay. That can change. Wherever you are, the goal is to become outstanding. When you are outstanding, you are marked by just being a signature brand, whatever that looks like. You are a market leader. Customers are looking for your business. They're looking for your services and products. You can be a nonprofit even, and your impact is just big, right? So this isn't restricted to only, typical commercial businesses. Any purpose-driven organization, rather it's profitable making, or rather it's a nonprofit or just a standard sort of structure, doesn't matter. You can definitely benefit from being outstanding. Competitors will study your playbook. They look at how you're doing things because they know that you have the sauce, as it were. Okay, internally, your team morale and your productivity rates, they're up. Things are doing good. Roles and procedures, they're documented, they're optimized, they're making sense. In terms of your brand, how it looks on the outside, how people are interacting, you're seeing gains in your customer retention and satisfaction. You're getting those quick gains in the beginning. Again, this is for SMBs, so this 5 to 50% figure, realistic if you start to implement the right things at an early level. Obviously, the larger you get, you start to see some pretty wild changes to some of these figures. And so I do want to be clear, once again, this is for the SMB space. Typically your newer businesses and those who are, maybe further along by several years. We're not talking about Walmart here, right? 5 to 15% annually is a pretty big number for, these large companies. But for someone who's starting out, or a startup or anything like that, even moms and pops that have been around, or local staples, restaurants that have been around, these can start to see these kinds of gains, reasonably so, if they're starting from any other position except being outstanding. So then your insightful metrics, help in planning, we're at status quo here. Everything is accounted for, right? You have workflows streamlined, you have teams and systems, whatever you have going on, it's all running smoothly and you know how you got there. This is really important because oftentimes, there's in the world of development, we call certain companies unicorns. These are companies that just kicked off and went really big, really fast, and they may have intended it, they may have not. Typically, if you listen to their interviews and stuff, they definitely didn't, but they had a plan, right? You want to have a plan to succeed. You want to be intentional about it. We want to make sure that you actually succeed because you tried, and you can retrace your steps and know why that matters is because if you know how you got there, you know how you can scale it, you know how you can do it again. All right. So then, in the end of all of this, what do you get? You get big wins, right? You are able to make the money that you want. You're able to build the business you want, make the impact that you want, help the people you want. And so you can go and you can enjoy life. You can actually let your business be an asset to you while you do the things that you want to do. All right. And even if you're a nonprofit, once again, you can go out and make the impact that you want. You're not reduced to sticking in one place. You can kind of move around, feel free, and do really big things that can help you widen your impact and start to see a difference in the world as you want to make it, right? And you can do it with people you actually enjoy working with, love, and care about, because that's what teams are. All right, so let's talk about some simple definitions. I'm very much a definition person. Words mean things and we want to make them make sense. We want to always try and get clarity around everything that we're doing. And so I want to talk about the definition of automation. And we're going to keep it simple. I'm a words person. I love etymology. You want to think about automation as one simple combination of two terms, one which means self and one that means moved or activated. And so when you put these two words together, you get self-moved or self-acting. That's what we're discussing when we say automation. Ways to automate your business mean ways to make your business self-acting. We want it to be able to carry out work on its own and be able to benefit you in that manner. So what do you need in order to automate your business? Well, there are 4 key ingredients. There's your strategy, there's your software, there's your infrastructure, and then there are implementers. All of these things are necessary if you want to be able to automate your business. Without one, you really can't get what you're needing to get done. I will point out details around each of these. And so I know that there are certain ideas around what infrastructure actually is and what software actually is and what kind of strategies you need. So we'll get into that. But these are just the ingredients at a high level that you'll want to have in order to be able to start to seriously put together an automation system for your business. But that does not mean that you shouldn't work on any one of these before you actually implement them, right? You should start your strategy as soon as possible. You should start researching your software stack as soon as possible. And you should start considering your infrastructure as soon as possible. And there's many great ways that you can do that. So RAD. Everybody's rad. And I love this slide because it's going to talk to you about a very important idea around what you need to think, how you need to think rather, when you're thinking through your strategy. So those 4 ingredients are all very important. But I want to say that a sense of awareness is definitely key. More than those other 4, you have to have a sober and clear picture of your business. And I don't mean you have to have everything worked out. You just need to have a clear understanding of what you do need to have worked out if it isn't, and what is already worked out, if anything at all, right? So the R in RAD stands for relegate. You never really want to relegate. When you relegate, this means that you're taking somebody or something that is capable of much more than what you're giving it. Okay, that's not a good situation to be in. I once went to meet with a large nonprofit that I won't name out of respect, and we didn't really get anywhere. There was some not resistance from the staff, but resistance from leadership, and so we allowed that opportunity to just fizzle away, and we didn't pursue too heavily. We let that be what it is. We don't chase. But one of the things that came up during one of the meetings that really stuck with me was how there was a woman there who had a degree, a very high level degree. I mean, someone who should have been really adding a lot of value to the business. And it came up during our interviews with the team members that with this lady, she was actually spending a lot of her day, believe it or not, filtering an inbox. So they had one email address where a lot of their intake would come into, and then they had other people who headed up different departments. And this woman who had many years of life experience under her belt, so to speak, and a very high level degree, was spending a great portion of her time playing around in a Google email inbox, waiting for emails to come in, and then figuring out who they needed to be forwarded to so that it could reach the right person. This is an example of relegation. You almost never want to do this, because when you do this, well, it doesn't go well for you, as you can see. Delegation is the step probably before automation that is very important. And in fact, before you ever build any automation tools, it's always smart to build out your processes and to start delegating the right things to the right people, because even doing that will give you back some time, save you some effort, and save you some money, right? So you want to delegate wisely. There's always a way to give tasks to somebody who can handle them efficiently and effectively, and they typically will help you to start to force yourself to create the processes needed in order to get the information to the right party who needs to follow those processes, right? So going back to that people, process, technology trifecta. As you write out your processes, as you develop those SOPs, you're going to be able to build a better plan, and you're going to be able to see where you can start delegating. And this tends to feel like a burden at first. It tends to feel like, it's not getting you the results you're looking for right away, but it does immediately get you results, and you will see the effect of them pretty fast if you just allow it to take its course. Automation is where we want to be. We want to be able to assign particular tasks and functionalities within your business system to software that can handle those problems for you. And we'll talk about what kinds of software can do that, because there's a lot of them. But it's just important to understand that this is what automation is about. It's about, again, making your business self-acting, right? So you can delegate wisely, you want to relegate sparingly, but you want to automate often, okay? So let's talk about strategy now that we've gotten past the awareness part and RAD. The why and the how of your automation strategy really ties into the overall strategy for your business operating system, which is just the overall outline of how you do things and who and what are doing those things, right? So when you have your strategy straight, you have documentation, right? You have a roadmap, you have a problem analysis. What are the problems in your business? We're not talking about necessarily your outward marketing presentation of what are the problems you solve for your clients. We're just talking about the actual problem analysis for your business. How are you going to be able to deliver that more effectively? How are you going to be able to look at areas of your business where you see different problems that you can solve to improve your business, though it does all ultimately tie into your service delivery or the selling of your product or products. Really, we're talking about a more inward focus here, right? Your resourcing, who's going to be doing what, what's going to be doing what, and how's it going to do it. These are different things you want to consider, but overall you want to think about the why and the how. What are your processes? Why are you doing it that way? How are you getting it done? And you want to question all of these different things, right? So your strategy turns your technology into real transformation. Otherwise, you can just be adding tools to a pool of chaos, right? It's not really good. Okay, it's like throwing a robot into a swimming pool to help someone who's drowning. Well, is it even a robot that can swim? Right, you just got this expensive robot and you just threw it into a pool with somebody drowning. We don't know that it's going to really help them, right? It might be more sensible to just throw out a lifeboat or some kind of inflatable, because technically speaking, those are technology as well, right? Everything that's tech doesn't necessarily have a circuit board. So moving forward, you want to plan. That's the big thing here. Okay, I want to talk really quickly about the bus factor because it's a natural follow-up to strategy. Oftentimes we run into companies who have the bus factor issue. And what that means is that, we have this phrase in the world of development of, hey, if somebody were to, God forbid, be hit by a bus, how would the company change today? And I cannot tell you how many times I've run into an organization which has a single person who, is the griot or the sage or the oracle of that company and isn't the CEO, and doesn't have any shareable content, right? They just have everything in their head, or they have written some stuff for themselves, but it's not really circulated around the company, or they just know how to do things and, they're not really being used to train other people out. They just sort of all have it in and of themselves. Human being is absolutely irreplaceable. They are priceless. But when this happens, you do end up losing two things. You lose a team member and a dear friend, but you can also lose decades or years, months, however long, of valuable insight that's now totally irrecoverable. When a hard drive breaks, we all know how stressful that is. We lose precious data. Well, when a big part of your company is gone and you've lost a human resource who has the creative faculties to be able to, communicate to you that data and help you form structures around it, when you lose such a person, on top of the pain of just losing another human being, even if, no bus hits them, they just sort of leave the company, a relationship deteriorates, or they move overseas to pursue their dream, whatever it might be, you've lost that person in a way, and that insight can be super impactful for your business, and now it's gone. And so that's why we talk about strategy and planning so much, and that's why documentation is the first bullet here. You want things documented, okay? A lot of the strategy is built around what documentation you have in the first place. So this is where you want to start naturally. All right, so moving beyond the bus factor, you have your digital infrastructure. Really quick rundown. The internet is built on requests and responses, something like a telephone call or a mail system. You visit a site, your computer sends a request to another computer that's off somewhere in the world, and it sends back a response containing the data that your computer requested. That's how the internet works in a nutshell. What happens is that you have what's called a web server sitting in a giant warehouse full of computers, right? So just imagine a bunch of those tower computers, just in rows and columns all over, with air conditioners cooling them down, and they're just filling up an entire factory. This is what most digital warehouses look like, and they have professionals on site taking care of those machines for you. That's where your data is. That's where these websites are. That's where every phone app you use exists. It's all off running on a computer somewhere, and in order to access the data or interact with it, your computer, your cell phone, whatever have you, sends a request to that web server to get that information in some kind of a presentation on your screen through an application, through your web browser, or whatever have you. So your infrastructure gives your software stack somewhere to live. It's your digital factory, so to speak. Your software stack is different though. Your software stack is what the actual tools that you're using are. So your software stack might consist of something like Google Workspace, right? This is a piece of software. It is a service that runs on a ton of computers at Google's data centers somewhere in the world. And whenever you log into your email system, you're using some kind of an interface to see all of your data that's stored on those computers somewhere in the world. So you go to gmail.com, it sends a request to that server sends you back some information, you log in, you send that data to them, they check it, and then they let you in, then you go in your inbox and you see all of your data. This happens with everything. Stripe is a huge payment processing company. Shopify is a great e-commerce platform. Slack is for business team communication. Zoom is for video meetings. Zapier's gotten really popular over the years. They help you connect all the apps to all the apps. HubSpot is great. It's similar to Zapier, but it really focuses on marketing, and I do believe they've been around longer. They help you create landing pages, automate different tasks. All of these tools are really great. We've used them, implemented them for customers, and also have replaced them on many occasions as well. So really quickly, according to latest data, 91% of small and 88% of medium-sized businesses use at least one open source technology. We want to talk about what this is. Proprietary software tends to be, you pay for these subscriptions, you're paying on a user per seat basis, right? So you'll pay maybe $15 to $25 to $100, anywhere really, whatever the subscription price is for every seat that you're using. And every user gets access to a set of features and they're able to use this tool. As you can imagine, with a smaller business team, it might not be pragmatic to have these extra costs and things like that. So what is open source software? Well, in the world of development, sometimes somebody who knows how to create software, they solve a problem for themselves most often. They create a tool to solve a problem that they have. And then they decide, hey, I want to share this with the world. And so they write up a license or use a popular license, put it in the software package, and then put it out. They publish it for free, and other people can begin to use it and implement it in their businesses. So the average business would spend 3.5 times more on software costs if it wasn't for open source alternatives. The world of open source is really huge, and it's so helpful, and we evangelize about it because we want more people to know about this. It's great. You have wonderful communities out there who build full-blown computer operating systems. If you ever heard of Linux or Ubuntu or anything like that, these are open source operating systems. You can download onto a disk, put it on a new computer, and boom, you have an operating system so that you don't have to use Windows or something like that, right? There's just so many awesome tools. LibreOffice is another great one. It's a full-blown replacement for something like, let's say, Microsoft Office. You can make PowerPoints. You have the ability to make Word documents, spreadsheets, all of that. All of these are open source pieces of software. So proprietary tools are great. They're tried and true. They're tested. You know, they're safe. Open source software, it does come with its catches, and that is typically complexity, right? And you have an issue with, hey, can we actually implement this at our company? So sometimes people have to figure out what is going to be best for them. We highly recommend open source because once you have open source, you can start to figure out how to implement it. Oftentimes you have teams that are trying to fix things or build things or figure out problems to work their business, but they don't exactly know where to go with it, right? But if you find the right partner, you can get your problem solved. So when you're talking about your digital infrastructure, your software stack, and even putting your strategy together, it's really important to be able to do that because once you have those 4 ingredients, you can start to put together your automation system. But if you don't know how to do it, a good partner can still go much further for your business in the long run than trying to either do things on your own or going a route where you end up spending a lot of money that realistically is going to be hard for you to break even on, right? Because even if you get the software, who's going to deliver the strategy on it, right? You might be able to pay for proprietary software to get things done, but who's actually going to map out how you're going to maximize on this? And shout out to all of the great proprietary tools out there and open source tools that have good documentation. But at the end of the day, it still is a question of who even has the time to start to implement these things, right? So a good partner is definitely key. You want someone who's able to hand you what you need. You want someone who's going to take care of you. You want to be able to have success and do it the right way, okay? It's all about moving into being an outstanding business. So that's where we come in. So South Atlantic Technology Partners, that is who we are. We want to help you bring your vision to life. We want to help you streamline your sales, marketing, and admin operations. We want to create digital experiences that your audience loves, whoever that might be. And we want to build and integrate smart technology directly into your business to help you succeed. We specialize in web development and we specialize in business process automation. We want to offer you the ability to work with us. We have packages ranging from $397 to $5,000 for micro businesses, larger businesses with high ambitions, diverse needs, and or complex requirements or organizational structure can expect to invest around 3 to 12% of their annual income on average for most projects. And if you want to work with us, you can simply visit our website at www.southatlantictech.com. You can fill out the form there, and we will reach out to you as soon as possible to discuss your project. Hope all these things have been really helpful for you. The idea is just to once again demystify the whole mystery around automation. You now know what it is, you know about the benefits of it, you know that you can move from being dysfunctional or replaceable or inconsistent to being an outstanding business, and you have the ingredients that it takes to get you there. So the question is, what are you going to do about it, right? We're going to send you, or you can find on the YouTube video, a link to a free opportunity, which is our automation opportunity ebook. And this is going to help you start to look for easy wins in your business. It'll help you to find low-hanging fruit that you can start to plan around today. I want to make it clear, you can automate with spreadsheets, right? You don't need the fanciest tools in the world. There's so much that you can do with simple tools and simple solutions, right? And so if you want to start in the right direction, definitely reach out. Our consultations are free, right? I want to mention that you don't have to buy into anything. Great. You can sit down with us and we can talk to you about where you are, where you want to go, and help you figure out what is going to be the best way to step forward. Of course, we would love for you to work with us, but you can definitely come and see us for a free consultation in order to get you started down the right road. And you're free to download the ebook, fill it out, and bring it along with you, and that will help us to help you get started right away on a strategy that might make sense for you. All right, we thank you for joining us today. Really had fun presenting this to all of you, and looking forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, we're stopping the live stream now, and we'll take questions from those who are on the live call. Take care.